Thank you.
Right.
Are you suggesting that someone's trying to make a real-life sequel?
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck.
2 in the box!
Ready to go.
We be fast and
They be slow.
Wow. A second Super Saiyan? Second in order, perhaps, but by no means in stature. Your fight is with me now.
And when I kill you, I will have killed the last Jedi.
Man, I can't fucking believe this. Another basement, another elevator. How could the same shit happen to the same guy twice?
Oh, please, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
Hey everyone, this is your host Chris here at Inside the Sequel. I'm so happy to be back after our 1 week break. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. This is Inside the Sequel, where we talk about sequel movies, and not just any, but ones that really kind of get forgotten about amongst popular sequel movies. But it's also highlighting sequel movies that don't get enough love. And today I can't think of a sequel movie that I personally love a lot that I feel like gets lost in the void of this franchise. And I feel like this podcast has almost become this franchise's like home, because we talked about so many of them already. But that was kind of part of my thought process when I started a sequel podcast, was like, oh, this franchise is going to be like one I'd love to keep talking about more and more and kind of give extra love to. And that is the Alien franchise. If you remember some of our earliest episodes, we did Prometheus and Alien Covenant, which are prequel sequels to the original 1979 Ridley Scott masterpiece that is Alien. And, you know, Aliens gets talked about as well. Love that movie. But let's be honest, that 1986 film is popular as fuck. So growing up watching this franchise, I always developed a little bit more of a love for Alien 3. In today's episode, Alien Resurrection.
My mommy always said there were no monsters. No real ones. But there are.
Wish you could understand what we're trying to do here. The potential for this species goes way beyond urban pacification. And the animal itself, wondrous. Potential. Unbelievable. Once we've tamed them.
You can't teach it tricks.
Why not? We're teaching you.
Who are you?
Ripley Ellen, Lieutenant First Class.
Ellen Ripley died 200 years ago. You're not her.
You can't stop it. It's inevitable.
What the hell is going on here?
He is breeding an alien species.
You'll never get out of here alive.
And today, as our guest, we have a fellow, not just Ridley Scott, but just a Scott's family lover with me. And that is returning guest Matt Bledsoe from the Film Feast. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me back on the show. I'm excited to talk about Alien Resurrection and this whole franchise and all this stuff. It should be a good time.
Yes, and you know, those of us who listen to Film Feast know that, you know, we did a collab recently where we talked about Godzilla vs. Kong, and I have to say, my bud, that was so fun. I hate like admitting that I jerk off to myself, but like I definitely like listened to that episode more than once, and I was like, yeah, this is a good one.
That was a lot of fun. I think me, you, and Ken talked for like 45 minutes after we even finished up the episode too. We're having such a good time like talking to each other. And I am calling Ken Walker, Texas Ranger now since you started that.
I didn't realize that was like something off the dome that I was like, this feels like something of his speed. Let's try this one out. Cause I do listen, and you know, Ken is there and he's like the guy of knowledge and fun. And then it's like, you know what, let's throw a curveball at him today. And I guess it stuck.
No, it's good. It's good. I think I don't know why I hadn't thought of that before. It was so when you said it, I was like, oh man, why have we not been using that this whole time? But no. Ken has a lot of knowledge, but Ken gets like way goofier when he's not on the podcast. I feel like you get him off the podcast and he's like real ridiculous. So I'm just like, I think you like loosened him up a little bit. I think it was good.
Yeah, he reminds me of someone that I'd have at my lunch table in high school. You know, and like we'd play like on our Game Boy Colors playing Pokemon or something. I feel like Ken is like up to that speed with me, and I love that.
That does sound like something he'd be up to with you. I think he'd be good with that.
But Matt, I'm so happy to have you, guy. I love how we collabed, and then I'll be honest, like that RoboCop episode that we recorded is still one of my favorites because it was just it didn't even feel like a recording. It felt like just us booling on the mics, just loving RoboCop.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that. I felt like that was the most like relaxed and like awake I've been for an episode of a podcast, because I think we did that like middle of the afternoon on a weekend, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so energized for this talk about RoboCop 2, and plus I just love RoboCop 2, and I like listened back to it, I'm like, yeah, this is just like a fun conversation. It barely feels like we're even like trying to do a podcast.
Yeah, and I like I said, yeah, it was just really fun. I didn't feel like we were really recording, and I feel like the vibe's already there again. It's another early afternoon recording, only this time we're already drinking. I believe you're already drunk, aren't you?
Oh, I'm hammered right now. This is, I don't know how I'm even keeping it together.
Well, Matt, you know, you're back on after a small absence, but you've been kicking ass on the film feast, so I'll excuse that. But I am curious, what have you been up to lately? What have you been watching, man?
Man, lots of stuff. But I was just telling someone lots of stuff for podcast episodes, which is like makes it tough to talk about. But I'm usually super random with what I watch. Like it's just like I can't even plan out like a day ahead. Like, oh, tomorrow I'm gonna check out this movie. It's like in the moment I'm scrolling through like streaming or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch, you know, whatever this is. And this is super rare. I think you might appreciate this. This may be. I feel like I'm gonna show my age here a little bit. Some of these Disney Channel original movies on Disney Plus from like the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know if you ever got into these when you were younger.
Yeah, I did. I grew up like watching a few of them. And my buddy Seth, though, he stands Disney original movies. Like he stands them.
I do too. I mean, there were so many good ones back in the day. Like, and I got into a thing like it was like a week or two ago, and it's like me and a woman I just started dating. Like we just started, and somehow we both were on the same page on this. We were like, what do we want to watch? Some Disney Channel original movies. I don't know how we got to that point. And we were on Disney Plus, and I watched Phantom of the Megaplex. Have you seen that one?
I watched that. I haven't watched it all the way, but I've watched parts of it with Seth. Because Seth, I think, was rewatching it for an episode on Cobwebs with Daniel. And, you know, I was sitting and watching it with him a little bit. I kind of remembered that one as a kid. I also remember Luck of the Irish, too.
Yes. I mean, yeah, I was going through the movies, and I was like, I remember all of these. Like, I could tell you the plots. I could tell you, like, what happened. Rewatched that one. Didn't like it as much as I remembered liking it. But, like, I mean, it's still a fun movie. It's set in a movie theater. I'm a sucker for that. Like, you know, it's like Phantom of the Opera story, which I also like a Phantom of the Opera story. You got Mickey Rooney for some reason in this movie, like 80-year-old Mickey Rooney. I don't think he even knows what he's doing there, but he's still great. Like, it's a silly movie. Like, I mean, there's some wild stuff. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you remember this movie, but it's like a part where for some reason this kid really I probably thought the same thing. He thinks it's super cool to be the manager of a movie theater. That's what he wants to be, which I thought would have been cool when I was like 16, 17. But there's a part where like all these gumballs, the machine breaks, all these gumballs at the floor, and he grabs like a hockey stick and starts like hitting him into a trash can, and people are like cheering him on. Like it's like the coolest thing they've ever seen. And I'm like, what is this movie? But I mean, yeah, they got a bunch of fake movies in there. It's not like the worst movies ever made. There's one like Farmer Brown Goes to Town. I'm like, that movie would bomb like so bad. Like this, like, I mean, it's fun. Now I watched another one right after that. We watched another movie that I still really like. I think it holds up really well. Johnny Tsunami. Please tell me you've seen Johnny Tsunami.
I was about to say that's another one that I really like.
Hey, listen, after Phantom of the Megaplex, it was even better. I was like, oh, this movie's great. Like
elevated cinema. I love it.
It's like,
also weird choice of movies to make out to, Matt. I mean, you start dating this girl, you're watching Disney Plus movies. That's weird. I mean, I guess he didn't want to get laid. Probably was
like
too
I
much.
said, I don't know how we got to that point where we ended up watching these movies, but I don't know. We had a good time, but I can't remember. No, we'd both seen Johnny Tsunami, but we were like, this is actually really good. Like the stuff with his grandpa, who was Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movie back in the day.
Oh, okay.
I love his grandpa. Like he's walking around saying, as a kid, I thought he was saying, "Hey, porno," but he's saying, "Hey, porno," and he's like, "Hey, porno." Like he's oh my god, the dude is the best. Like, and as a kid, I was scared of him as Shang Tsung, and then he's like this nice grandpa in Johnny Tsunami, and god damn it, he's the best. And I was like, this movie is still great. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just nostalgia, but it's like I still love that movie so much.
No, dude, like some of those early, like late 90s, early 2000s, just Disney in general was like kind of like a guilty pleasure. And I don't feel like it should be guilty, but they don't age super well, but they're kind of like your comfort blankets, like when you were like a middle school kid,
Yeah. And they played them all the time on Disney Channel. So it was like you saw them many, many times. So you just kind of like end up liking them. And I'm looking for some sequels to talk about with you too. But like the only sequels I've watched have been like the newer Godzilla MonsterVerse stuff, which we talked about on my show for Godzilla versus Kong. So yeah, I don't know, really random stuff. Like I brought up 2 Disney original movies. Clearly been watching very random things lately. Like
I'm guessing like you were watching Captain America: The Winter Soldier or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and you're probably like, oh, let's see what else is probably on the Disney Plus. But I also heard that they raised the price on them, so thank God I'm mooching off Daniel.
I'm mooching off one of my friends. Yeah, I don't pay for it. I'm mooching off somebody else. I don't know. Yeah, man, it's like it's hard to talk about stuff because like most everything else is like was already talked about in a podcast or for another podcast. It's like I kind of get what like movie podcast people like they talk about like, oh, all the stuff I watched lately is for kind of like research. So still trying to find time to get like stuff I just want to watch in there. But yeah, it's kind of tough lately. So
yeah, honestly, I mean, after you watch King Kong versus Godzilla, I mean, what other movies can stand up to that? So like the motivation to find something to watch is not there anymore. But I am so excited for today's episode, Matt, because it's funny because you started that new podcast, Unscottable, and it's about Tony Scott's filmography. And then I have you on for a franchise that Ridley Scott kind of has steamrolled through. And it's kind of interesting that I remember for those wondering how I slide into guest DMs, I pitched the wrong Alien movie to Matt, and Matt's like, "No, I like this one," and I'm like, "Oh, well, either way, I want you for it." So we're talking about Alien Resurrection, and honestly, dude, this is like popcorn for me. Like this movie, it is just like for a decade, I've usually not been so crazy about. This is one of those movies from the 90s where I'm like, I can watch this whenever.
Yeah. It's I think it's just a fun movie. Like, and we're going to start here, but like, it's hard with the Alien franchise because it's kind of a weird franchise. Like it's kind of like the Terminator franchise. Like after part 2, a lot of people don't care as much and have a lot of problems with like a lot of the sequels for different reasons. You know what I mean? It's like people love the first 2 movies, and after that they're like, I'm kind of so like, and I hate to like bash into the movie, but like but I think I like Alien Resurrection so much because I really, really don't like Alien 3. Like the movie like just gets off on the wrong foot with me because of how it starts with like, because I love Alien so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And then Alien 3 comes in and just like, I mean, I don't know how to say it, kind of like shits all over Aliens with where it begins. And I'm like, I hate that. It like brings characters back just to kill them. Or they just killed off screen. I don't want to spoil too much by people I know, but it's like, they just kill these characters I love off with like, you're just like, oh, they're dead. It's like, and then it's like, oh, and the movie Alien 3 is like so like bleak and depressing and just like, to me, it's just not a fun movie. Like, I don't think it's a badly made movie, but like, it is like a chore for me to get through. And like, so Alien Resurrection comes along and I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, I think I also am more of a fan of like when there's more than one alien. I mean, I love the first Alien, but like Alien 3 is back to like kind of basics of like, there's one alien. These people don't have like weapons to fight the alien. Like, give me like a crew and a bunch of aliens and them fighting each other. And I'm more on board. And Alien Resurrection brings that back, which I think is one of the reasons I like it so much.
No, that's good. I mean, you are right. Alien 3, I mean, a David Fincher film that one was rushed to hell, and
Yeah.
Fincher's just style in general kind of fits that. I mean, you go later on after that, and it's pretty dark stuff, and it's pretty apathetic. But yeah, Alien 3 does suffer from what Danny usually calls like the mean openings, and what he usually means by that is like people like in sequels, you got to tread carefully because if you bring people from the previous movie that live and then kill them off, it's like there's almost no point to it, Like it's such a like Friday the 13th Part 2 does that.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other movies where you just want to see this person ride off in the sunset after they survive this horror,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you just don't get that with Alien 3. I totally get that. But when you were growing up, Matt, and watching movies, because I know you watch a lot of RoboCop as a kid, from what you've told me. I'm gonna guess like sci-fi was like kind of one of your jams growing up. So I'm wondering, like, did Alien kind of coincide with that, or did you get into the Alien movies like as you got older?
Well, it was like I feel like sci-fi action was like really popular in the late 80s, early 90s, probably because of stuff like Terminator and Aliens. And it's like, so I remember I always say it's like when I was really little, like 5 or 6, I was seeing like RoboCop and Aliens and Terminator 2 and like these things I should not have been seeing. And so I loved Aliens from like a really young age. I didn't see Alien till way later. And Alien 3 actually was literally told to me on a bus ride, like a school bus. Like one day, this kid was telling everyone about Alien 3 because somehow he got to see it. And even just hearing about it from that kid, I was like, this doesn't sound very good. Like I was probably like 7 or 8 or something. And like everyone's like, oh, and we were like, I don't know if I can spoil Alien 3, but it was like because they kill off Ripley at the end of that too. And it's like, oh my, I'm hearing that. I'm like, what? I'm like, he's the main character. And then like Alien Resurrection comes out in 97. So I'm like 10. And I don't remember if I saw it in a theater or I rented it like a year after it came out. But I know I saw it like pretty close that time. So I was still pretty young. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Okay. Like she's Sigourney Weaver's back, even though she's a clone, and like the cast is good. Otherwise, we have a whole like a crew here of like mercenaries. There's multiple aliens again. There's weird shit with like a new alien creature. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. I just had more fun with it than Alien 3. Like Alien 3 is like, to me, like I just don't want to revisit it because it's like unpleasant. But like Alien Resurrection, I'm like, it's so far removed too. It's like 200 years after 3. It's like it feels like it's like set apart from the whole franchise because it's so far in the future. So I'm like, I can just have fun with it easier. I don't know. Like I liked it since I saw it like back when it first came out. So I've been a fan for a long time, and I didn't know till way later that I'm like, oh, people really think this one is stupid. Okay, like, didn't know that.
Well, when you get to like the 4th installment of any franchise, you're gonna start to like feel that wear and tear, And yeah, this movie kind of borrows some old things from like Aliens, but I feel like it kind of starts some new trends that didn't do super well, but I think pick up later on. For those who haven't seen Alien Resurrection, Ripley comes back in the very beginning. She's cloned. It talks about that. Also, what's interesting about this movie, Matt, I don't know if you knew this, but I didn't notice until upon another rewatch that Joss Whedon did the script for this movie. This was written by him, but he didn't direct it. It was directed by a French director named Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And what he did was make like that black comedy, which I still haven't seen, but I've heard nothing but great things about, called Delicatessen. And it has like an image of a pig. And he also directed Amelie. The very, very, very successful 2001 movie, I believe. He won 2 Oscars for it. But he directed it, and Joss Whedon wrote it. And I never noticed that until now. And it's interesting, like everything that's gone on to come out because of Joss Whedon and, the Justice League stuff. Watching the movie, I started to notice a few things that I didn't like as much before, which we can get to a little bit later because it's juicy. It is spicy. But I also found it interesting that the French director, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, I believe that's how you pronounce it, got the green light to direct after it was offered to Danny Boyle and David Cronenberg, who declined the option to direct the movie. I feel like this movie would not be as fun if one of those two had directed it, though. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I could see them both doing it, I don't know what that would look like. Like, yeah, that'd be Cronenberg's would somehow be even grosser, I would imagine. Like, I don't even know how that would work, but I could see them both doing it. I don't know what that would look like, but it'd be interesting. Honestly, I'm kind of interested in both those versions.
Yeah, I think Danny Boyle's movie, because I mean, right after like this movie came out, 28 days later, it came out like what, 4 or 5 years later.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be a little bit more apathetic, if anything. But who knows? But when I'm watching this movie again, Matt, I noticed like, when you think like Joss Whedon, you think about this time like Firefly, you think of like Serenity and stuff like that, right? And this movie kind of has that feel like Serenity, like it's in a spaceship most of the movie, which is different from Alien 3 and Aliens. It's kind of a callback to the first movie. And it just feels like a band of misfits kind of like joking and being very, very verbally insulting to each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, how are they all friends in this ship? Because like they all seem to hate each other so much based on their language. But it feels kind of like a Joss Whedon TV show episode of Firefly or like I said, Serenity. It just kind of feels like that. And it's a very, very dark paleted film. There's hardly any color. It's very black and orange, which I think was kind of the trend of sci-fi movies at this time, because it gave you that impression of like, isolation in space, with the dark corridors. And it was an interesting choice. And I think it kind of fit what this movie's theme was about, which is just about survival and being isolated again. I don't know. Did you watch like Firefly or Serenity, the movie, Matt?
I did, and now I feel stupid that I didn't make that connection because I knew Joss Whedon wrote it, and it is kind of like a weird like before Serenity Firefly thing with that crew. Now that you mention it, like that comes onto the ship, and yeah, I don't know why I didn't put that together, but that's actually a really good point. Yeah, I'm like that seems like a dry run for what he's going to do a couple years later, because he's like in the middle of Buffy, I think, when this is going on. Like Buffy's like really popular.
Yeah, and that's a really dark and blue show, I don't which I mean that doesn't take place in space obviously, but
but yeah, it's interesting cuz like it feels like rougher than most stuff I've seen Joss Whedon do. Like it doesn't seem as fun as like the stuff he usually writes, like cuz there's some really fucked up stuff in this movie. Like it's crazy. Like I wrote down like I cannot believe that this major studio gave this like crazy Frenchman $75 million to make this movie and make it as gross and like just gooey and like it's just like everything. It actually has like a weird, I think, yellow kind of greenish palette. Like it makes it almost kind of looks like vomit. Like the whole movie has this like greenish yellow tint, and it's weirdly sexual. Like the whole thing is like so weird. I was like, Jesus, this is like the 4th entry in like this huge franchise, and it costs so much money, and like it's so weird. Like I cannot imagine that Fox was happy with this. I didn't read anything, but they must have been like, what did we get here? What is this?
Yeah, but it was like the second highest rated movie at the box office in release, so it wasn't like a commercial failure. It made a lot of money. I think it was definitely like underwhelming though. By this time, I think people were thinking with Alien movies, it better be just as good as 79 and 86, and it simply wasn't that. But I think this movie, you gotta kind of credit, like it kind of gave the rise to Joss Whedon in a way, and Jean-Pierre Jeunet kind of went on to do better things after this movie. It just feels like kind of like a what's to come preview movie, from like these younger filmmakers. I think also the cinematographer for the movie did a really great job, because this movie, there's lightning quick scenes. There's really long trailing shots. And, for 1997, the small parts of CGI, which I think in all these Alien movies, including like the Prometheus, the special effects teams have always been outstanding. You almost don't notice the CGI at all when there are in here. And this movie has a lot of practical effects.
Yeah, I kind of forgot how much was practical. There is some CGI, but I was still happy to see that like so much of this was still doing practical, which is nice. Like I feel they did, they try to do CGI for like everything now. Like I can't remember in Covenant how much of that, wasn't there a lot of CGI Alien, or did they go back to practical? I really can't remember.
They did a mix of both, but it was mostly all CGI, which is insane to me.
Yeah. Like no, this one still looks really good. Like was that crazy kind of scene near the end when there's the queen alien and Sigourney Weaver's like in the middle of this like alien hive, and like that all looks to be practical. Like that's insane. They built that. Like it's just like this crazy set design that I'm so glad most of this was like done practically, because it also gives that feeling of just texture, and like the grossness comes through. And it's like when they actually like, I think my roommate came in right when like the new alien hybrid creature like was born kind of, and he was like, Jesus, I forgot how like gooey that thing was.
Yeah. This
just
movie is like it's so it gives really like the like you notice how like the reproduction of these aliens are, because like in most of the movies it's set where the eggs are already there, you see the eggs, you have all the aliens are already out. But in this movie you see a lot of like saliva from the aliens, and you see a lot of blood up and close. It's really like, I love it, but I can totally get why people are like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I just noted it because I hadn't seen it in a little while, and I was like, wow, this is way grosser than I remember. And like I was watching this, I was like 10 or 11. I must have been really like,
dude, same thing. Same. And it is extremely violent too. There are scenes where guys' faces are half ripped off.
Oh my
there's
God,
a scene where a guy gets hit with a carbon freeze when the aliens escape, and like he just breaks in half. I'm like, whoa, what the hell?
One
like
guy
this
gets
is
his
a
head
violent
like
movie.
smashed, and like blood spurts out. Like I was like blown away by like when the head gets like it's crumpled up, like you'd crumple up like tinfoil or something, and like then blood just shoots out of it. Like it's crazy stuff. I was like pretty blown away by how violent it got too. I'd forgotten about that. Like it's just it's a wild movie. I think that's why I kind of like it too. It's like
same.
It's just crazy. Like I don't. It's and then they really haven't. This is like it's really on its own in the whole franchise. Like nothing else feels like this movie in the franchise. It's like it sits by itself. I will say one thing that I kind of didn't remember and I didn't really like was I feel like the first 20-25 minutes like it is not great. I feel like it takes not a long time. It takes a while to get going. I feel like once that crew of like mercenaries with like Michael Wincott and Ron Pearlman and those people get on the ship and have like a little kind of like gun, like a standoff. I feel like that's when the movie kind of like kicks in like to the gear I remember. But like the first 20 minutes, I was like, oh, this is kind of clunky. Like it's like get to it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think, watching it now, I get it. But like, I mean, you have to think when this movie came out, people probably thought it wasn't going to be made because of how the way Alien 3 ended. But I feel like they were like, okay, we have to write into existence why Ripley is here and why, what the time is now. And yeah, you're right. It does kind of drag, but I feel like they had to write stuff to existence in this movie. And I think that's also where you kind of see a lot of Joss Whedon's script of like, I mean, when Ripley comes back alive, which I have mixed feelings about bringing her back, but I'm still always happy to see Sigourney in an Alien movie. But you like the part where they're like, she's like the Weyland Yutani company, and the scientists like, oh, well, they were bought out by Walmart. And I'm just like, oh man, Ridley Scott somewhere is just shaking his head. But like, I mean, that's the Wheaton comedy, right? The very apathetic, kind of quick and witty and timely. But at the same time, it feels like you said a little bit separated from all the other movies. And then like, they really, I was surprised watching it again, like, Joss really like, I feel like there's even parts in the movie where the character's kind of shrugging, like, I don't know, this is how it is now. And I feel like that's Joss really going like, I don't know what to really do. And you don't really know what to do as an audience. So like, here you go. I feel like those moments in this movie. And I still like it. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like this was a tall task in writing this movie to existence,
That's true. They had to go back and kind of not fix a lot of things, but like it's like, how do we get this franchise going again? We kill the main character. Well, shit. Okay, what do we do? It's like we got to explain all this stuff, but it's in the future. We're cloning her, like pretty far fetched, but it's the future. Whatever, it's possible. Like, and I'd rather have her back in the movie than do the movie without her, honestly, because I love Sigourney Weaver as Ripley. So, and I feel like she's really good in this. And like she kind of is almost like a superhuman, basically. It's like she has that alien connection now too. Like,
She feels like Mila and people are gonna be like, "Oh God, here he goes," but it feels like a Mila Jovovich in the Resident Evil franchise with Paul W. Anderson.
Yes, that's actually a really good comparison because it's like
which I still love both of those movies. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like that.
Yeah.
That's another thing we're talking about Resident Evil. I feel like this movie, because it has like the band of like mercenaries, and they're like all struggling to survive and get like to their escape pod. I feel like this movie sets the trend for like, and maybe it didn't, and I just noticed it till now, but it feels like the whole like idea of like band of misfits and like surviving in like sci-fi or horror movies. Because like, you think movies that come out like Doom, the Resident Evil movies again, Alien versus Predator, these sci-fi properties where like a band of misfits have to survive and escape from a bunch of enemies. I feel like this movie kind of sets the tone on how to do them later on,
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. I mean, that stuff's really good. I like a good like motley crew of like tough mercenaries. Like I'm always a sucker for those kind of stories anyway. And what was I gonna say about kind of just the aliens in general?
You were gonna say you're a huge fan of Resident Evil as a franchise. Thanks, Chris, for mentioning it. Paul W. Anderson's a god, because we were all thinking it too. Thanks, Matt, for saying
I didn't want to go off on a tangent because I like those movies too. That's why I was like, Chris, don't send me down a Resident Evil path, because I could talk about like most of those sequels. It's funny with now I'm going to talk about Resident Evil. So I need someone to. I don't like the first one that much, but I like. Okay, cool. Sorry.
Oh my God. No,
I don't like it that much because I feel like they get better. I honestly feel like that from like 2 until was Final Chapter the 6th or 7th one? It was 6.
7.
7. Oh my God. I think you're right. So basically from like 2 up until the Final Chapter, I like all those sequels. I don't really. The Final Chapter was like too much for me. That movie is like, it's edited like they gave like a squirrel cocaine and let him in the editing room. It's like I was in a theater watching that and was like blown away at like how quick that they're cut. It's like you get a shot for like a second and it's gone, and it's like everything's like he's shaking the camera, the editing's so quick. I'm like, this movie's a mess, but like the rest of them I'm on board for. If you want to talk about Resident Evil sequels, get me back for some of those in the middle. I'm good.
Yes. Okay. Well, you'll be back on you just purchased your next ticket to be on this show where we'll
Perfect.
talk about Resident Evil movies. But yeah, well, we just got on a tangent, which isn't bad. But about the aliens, let's talk about the Xenomorphs for a second.
Yes.
I think they're just, if you're someone who's not like a huge alien fan, you'll say, oh, these monsters all look the same. But in this movie, I feel like 3 got it kind of wrong in a way of like redesigning it to make it look more like a hunter dog. This movie kind of goes back to like Aliens, where like you can actually see the Xenomorphs, I feel like one of the struggles, like, later on, like Prometheus and like Alien Covenant kind of got, and then Alien 3 got flack for, which this movie does well, is you get to see the damn things,
Yeah, I'm all about that, because I kind of forgot about in Alien 3 it's kind of like a weird dog, it's like and then
chasing them through tunnels and stuff, which is an interesting idea. Man, I'll just have to do an Alien 3 episode just to get my mind off of. We'll get my mind and thoughts all out there on it.
There you go. Yeah. So and then this one, I do like that they are more like the typical xenomorph. And for my money, I feel like xenomorphs are like the scariest movie monster ever, because they are so far removed from like anything human. Like they're so, and they have no eyes, so you can really I think you can like see them under the skeletons, kind of like see through a little bit, but like you don't, they're so blank, and like they're so fucking scary. Like I don't know if you ever played this game called Alien Isolation.
Yes, of course I did. And shout out Amanda Ripley in that game.
There you go. Yeah, one of the scariest games I've ever played, because you're getting stalked by a xenomorph the whole time, and it's just God, it's like the scariest thing to me. And like when you have more of them, they say less is more sometimes. I don't think that's with Alien, because I think it only gets scarier when you've got like 30, 50 xenomorphs versus one, because like with one, it's like we can deal with that probably, but when you got like dozens and dozens, it's like shit, we're in trouble. So, like they're just so damn scary. Like, so I'm happy there's more of them, and they do look really good in this. And also now I'm more scared of aliens or xenomorphs chasing me through fucking water. They can swim like that.
Okay, as a kid, that was like one of the parts of this movie that got so much flack. People were like, aliens in the water are so dumb. But I'm like, as a kid, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool sequence. Yeah, I always thought, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't think about them swimming. Like, that's even scarier because, like, they're so fast. It's
Yeah,
like,
and then they
oh,
swim to the surface, and it's a trap because there's where the nest is to get them. And I'm like, these
crafty.
bastards.
Yeah, so crafty. And they're smart. Oh, did you read, I have to mention did you read that Ron Perlman almost drowned doing this because he knocked
Yep.
his head on like a
Yeah,
sprinkler or
yeah.
something in the underwater and they had to pull him out? It was like, oh my God, we almost lost
Yeah.
Hellboy.
And then, yeah, seriously. And then also Winona Ryder looks miserable in this scene because apparently she like has a fear of swimming.
Oh my God.
They had to swim for this scene. So that's why you see her. She's looking very uncomfortable and you don't see her in a lot of scenes because they didn't want her. She didn't want to be in the water as much. So you see a lot of Ripley and you see a lot of the other characters.
Man. So yeah, that stuff's terrifying. Like, I'm on board for like, give me more aliens because it's only scary. There's a part in Alien Isolation where you're fighting one alien and then suddenly then again a bunch of aliens pop up and I'm like, oh shit, now it's real. Like, oh my God. So yes, I'm all about that. And they're smart. I feel like every movie they get smarter, I think. And like this one, like they're setting traps, which is even scarier. It's like, Jesus Christ, now they're smart. It's like, oh my God, like you just keep adding stuff to these things.
Yeah, and I think when you have like movies like this where it's a bunch of like unreasonable like enemies that are attacking a crew or survivors, makes it scary because they can't they basically have to survive and they're kind of anticipating when aliens are going to strike. With movies like this, you better hope you have like good characters to like get involved with, and I feel like this movie has like really good chemistry. Like Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder and Ron Pearlman and Brad Dourif in the same sci-fi movie, like in 1997, which is like peak Brad Dourif and Sigourney. Winona Ryder, I mean, her plot twist in this movie is, I think it was a little like, oh boy, but like it's kind of surprising. When you think about surprises in movies, you kind of didn't see it coming. And man, I think Ron Pearlman kind of steals the show. I was a little hesitant with him at the very beginning because, and I don't fault him. I fault mostly Joss. He comes across as like a really, really big dick. Like, like he has like, this movie is like, all right, we're going to talk about the Joss thing. It feels like it's written kind of like angrily towards women in a way, which is weird because the movie's two main leads are females. And maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but it feels like a lot of times throughout this whole movie, the men are so overtly horny and like cursing at the girls the entire movie. And then once one of the secrets is revealed about them, like they kind of use like, some terms towards them that's like derogative, I guess, to their species, And I can't help but feel that's a little bit from Joss, but like, I don't know, maybe I'm just overlooking it. Maybe I'm looking too into it. Maybe. I don't know.
No, that's a good point. And it's weird. Well, first of all, that twist got me too. The first time I saw it, I was like, really like, what the fuck? It's like, I couldn't believe it. I'm fine with that twist, but yeah. And it's weird because Joss Whedon, he's so, it's like hard to talk about him now because he sounds so terrible from everything I've heard recently. But the weird thing is he's always written these like strong central female characters. So he did it with Buffy. He did it in this. I know I'm forgetting somebody. He had good characters in Firefly, good female characters. So like he's done it before, and like I just took that as like, because the two main characters are Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder, and I just took it as like he's showing that these guys are awful, and like they're scared of like powerful women. I don't know. I think Ron Perlman like has a thing for Sigourney Weaver in this movie, but it's like I think his character likes her, but because she's like a strong woman, but. I don't know. It's tough because now knowing what I know about Joss Whedon, I don't know what to make of it. Like you may be right, but I always took it as he was showing the men as kind of like shitty. They were just horny guys, and like the women were the ones who like had their heads on straight and got shit done.
Yeah, that's a good point because that's what I've always thought too. It's like both of them two together kicking ass because they mostly are the only ones who kick ass throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Even though the guys all have guns, and their mouths talking. But man, this is a horny movie though. Like Ron Pearlman is constantly suggesting how he wants to have sex with one of the girls, and so does the guy in the wheelchair. I forget his name. And then you get Brad Dourif, who you'd think he'd want to have sex with one of the aliens, the way he's like making out with it and so obsessed with it.
Yeah, and then Michael Wincott from The Crow, who
Oh yeah, and he's like with the like he had a weird obsession with feet, which
yes,
even as a kid I
yeah.
was like, why the feet?
And it's a really quick scene, so you're like, huh? Like it's like I think you think it's gonna be a sex scene, and then it's like just him rubbing her feet, and you're like, what was that? And then especially the kid, you're like, huh? And then it's over. And like I wish they didn't kill him off so early in this movie because I like him as an actor. Usually he's a bad guy. Wait, Chris, have you seen The Crow?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
But I've
my
seen him in
God.
other things
No.
before.
He's so good in The Crow. He's the main bad guy. He's so good.
Oh.
You
Is
got to
that the
watch The Crow.
Brandon Lee movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
Man, we've got to
Maybe
get you to watch The Crow.
No, I don't think I've actually seen The Crow. I've seen like scenes of The Crow, but I haven't seen The Crow.
I think you would like it. I really do. And he's really good as a bad guy, and that's what I always knew him as. And like, yeah, he's like the leader in this, but then he gets killed off like earlier than almost anybody else. So
Seriously.
yeah, that kind of was a bummer. But yeah, I caught lost train of thought. What were we talking?
But we were just talking about like just the guys in this movie. There's so many different ones, and I love how Ren, the scientist, is like. Of course, he's like so bad, like he's an evil guy.
Oh yeah.
And he pulls out a scene straight from Star Wars where he tells Winona Ryder, he's like, "You're far too trusty," and then takes her gun and shoots her and runs off.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, that's exactly what Peter Cushing said in Star Wars. Or
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
that was me only thinking. I don't know.
No, I think you're onto something. But and it's so there's like I was feeling like weird Jurassic Park vibes because it's like
Yeah,
again,
that's a good point too.
this company wants to like mess with something that they really shouldn't mess with, but they can't help themselves. And it's like, man, you guys are stupid. Like, stop messing with these aliens. Like, no, what do you? I can't remember what they want to do with them, but they're like,
They
let's
want to
make-
domesticate them and make them like dogs and make them pets.
such a horrible idea. Like, why would you do that? And it's
They're
like
just so cute.
I love how at one point, yeah, they show like how smart the aliens are when they basically kill one of their own so they can use the acid blood to get to the
Yes.
floor. And then they literally one of them turns a button on with I believe its
Mhm.
little mouth. If it comes
Yeah.
it's like, holy shit, these things have really turned it around. So yeah, I'm just like, why do these companies keep messing with this stuff? Like, oh, but I mean, the sad thing is I feel like it could actually really happen. Like a military or private company would like mess something really, really dangerous, even though it's a horrible idea. Like,
Yeah, seriously.
Oh.
But like as a kid, I kind of always associated Alien, like even as an early age, I associated like the Xenomorphs with like a corporation,
Mhm.
and like domesticating them. And then like this is why you shouldn't do that. Which I don't want to say like this is the movie that kind of clicked it for me, but like it kind of also did in a way because it was so overtly, like in all the other Alien movies, the Weyland Yutani Corporation, it's always been like kind of like behind the shadows,
Mhm.
But like in this one, it's all up in the forefront. And I love how quickly this movie turns south with the aliens. Like you said, when they start killing each other. And like these bastards, like they know what they're doing. But I like that though. It's not. I don't want to say like it's cheesy, but it's very aware.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So.
It's also very apathetic, when they talk about like Walmart, being the things that bought it. And then this is the first movie where they go to Earth, and all the other movies it's in space or a different planet. But in this movie, the ship is headed towards Earth, and everyone is like, what a shithole that is. Or like, it's such a horrible place to be in right now. And I'm like, man, like maybe it's the Frenchman that just thinks, the Americans are horrible or something, but I don't blame them. But they just do not want to go to Earth.
And that's kind of like a missed opportunity with most of the series is like that I would have liked to see aliens kind of just on Earth, not even like a post-apocalyptic Earth, just Earth in general. Like, and they tease it in 3. I don't know if you knew about this, that they literally had the marketing out. Like the teaser trailer was like in space, no one can hear you scream. And it's like in 1992 on Earth, like they will be able to hear something like that. It's like something where they tease like they'll be on Earth, and they didn't follow through with it in 3. And like they barely follow through with it on this one. Like they're going to Earth, but they're not really on Earth. And I'm like, I don't know why that idea didn't happen because I feel like it'd been interesting. Like,
oh God, you got that. You got that. Alien versus Predator 1 and 2.
I try to forget about it. Like, and then even in Alien versus Predator 1, it's like they're so isolated. They're in like Antarctica. It's like they're so isolated. It's like, okay, I don't like Alien vs. Predator Requiem, but at least they finally kind of give me the idea of like aliens like in a normal town. You know what I mean? Which
It's
is
definitely just aliens in the suburbs. I love
right.
it.
It's terrifying. Like, I wish that
Also,
movie was lit
you
better.
can't see anything in that movie, right? Is that what you always say?
That's what I always say. Did this just come up recently? I feel like I was talking to someone about how that movie's lit by like a candle and a flashlight, but it's like it's the darkest movie I've ever seen in my life. Can't see anything that's happening. And
Turn that contrast up when you buy it.
that I mean, even that, I remember trying to crank the brightness up, and I'm like, I still can't hardly see anything. Like, just a missed opportunity. But at least they kind of did the idea finally wanted them to. But I just don't know why it took them so long to get to that point. But yeah, I think it is funny how in this one they're like, nobody wants to go to Earth. Like, oh shit, we're going to Earth. What a hell! Fuck that place.
Yeah.
And they get there. I can't remember because I watched on the Blu-ray. There's the theatrical version, and there was like a 2003 special edition. It's only like 6 minutes long or something.
Okay.
I don't know which one you watched. I don't remember this being in there. At the end, it's Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder, and I can't remember I thought a couple of guys survived, maybe just them, and they're staring at Earth, and it's like they're in Paris. Eiffel Tower's like broken and crooked, and like they're just like it looks like really bad. So
yes, that's
okay.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is from the alternate cut, and and that is the definitive cut to watch. Joss was really upset with the theatrical release because it cut out a lot of stuff he had originally in there. The alternate cut adds more of those scenes and that ending, which I think is way better.
Yeah, I remember. I was like, "Oh, I like this ending." I couldn't remember if that was actually in the original or not, but the one I watched, I was like, "Oh, I like this." And I don't know how they ended in the theatrical. Honestly, I can't remember where they cut it off, but
I don't either because I've only watched the movie when it had like the DVD releases and the in the special edition. I don't know. As a kid growing up, and then most of like as a teenager, I always watched if there was an extended cut or alternate cut to the movie before you started. I've always watched those versions instead of the theatricals because I always assumed if it's a different cut, it's better. Now, again, that's not always the case. Like I'm looking at Alexander, for example, in like other movies where like the alternate cut isn't better. But so I don't think I've actually seen the theatrical cut.
I think it actually now that I think about it, I think Alien Resurrection ends in the theatrical with like they're still on the ship and they've killed the alien, and I think they're looking at like Earth and like the sun's kind of rising in the like behind it in the horizon. It's like this nice shot of Earth, but they haven't landed yet. So I think they actually like land there in the alternate cut. So that's like the difference. I think there's not much of a difference, but I think they just show Earth and they don't show them on Earth. So yeah, I don't know. I think they were kind of like the alternate cut kind of sets up more of a sequel. I feel like where it's like, oh, like we're here on Earth. What do we do? Like, because it's really, really ruined. Like it is really bad. I'm like, oh, they were right.
Isn't it Nathan Fillion that like shows up and like invites him to get on the Serenity ship, and then they kind of starts off his new Firefly show? Isn't that how it ends?
I think I would have liked that better, actually.
Nathan Fillion should have been in an Alien movie, though. I think he would have fit that really well. I could see a lot of like '90s actors like could be in like an Alien Resurrection type, Yeah. And like I mean, you get Ron Pearlman in this, and I gotta admit, Ron Pearlman was a busy guy in the late '90s. I feel like, and I like that because he did this and he did like Kronos from Del Toro. Then he starts doing the Hellboy movies, right?
Yeah, that's like early 2000s. So yeah.
And then Brett Dorff, like I said, Brett Dorff, if he's in a movie in the 90s, it's going to be at least an entertaining one because he just, I mean, he has such a small role in this movie, but as even like rewatching it, I remember the scenes he was in, like when he's in the cocoon talking to Sigourney and stuff. I remember him saying like a beautiful butterfly and thinking like as a kid, that is weird, but I love it.
Yeah, that's, man, it's a good cast. I was thinking like, I'm really glad they assembled this cast that they got. Like
it's a better cast than Avengers Assemble, right? The other Joss Whedon movie he writes.
Oh, I don't know. Now I don't want to watch it. I love Avengers, but now it's like, damn it, like Joss Whedon's like he just tainted it, It's like, oh man, but I don't know. Oh, I got to bring up one thing because it's like my favorite thing in the whole movie, and it's such a small thing. But Sigourney Weaver doing that behind the back basketball shot. Did you read about this whole thing?
Oh yeah, they had to take constant takes, and she finally does make it like on one of the takes, and Ron Pearlman is like freaking out. Like
it's so funny because it's such a quick moment, but like, and it's so funny because I think the ball like leaves the frame, so you could think that they just dropped another ball in into the net, which kind of sucks because when she actually did it. That's the funny thing. There's this whole it's such a long piece of trivia where it's like she did basketball lessons practice for like 3 weeks by a basketball coach like for this one shot. And her apparently I wrote this whole thing out. Her conversion rate was 1 of 6 shots, which is I mean that's decent. And then they got there, and I guess there was a rumor that she nailed in the first take, which is not true. They did, like you said, they did a bunch of times, and the director like didn't want to wait for her to get it. He's like, we can just drop it in from the top, like, you know, trick it. And she's like, no, I really want to do it. I practiced for this. So apparently she tried. I don't know. They didn't have a number, but like lots and lots of takes. And like he was like, okay, I'm gonna give you one last shot, and we're gonna use CGI or something if you can't get it. And then she nailed it apparently. And that's what you were saying. Like Ron Pearlman broke character and like began smiling, and the crew started cheering apparently. And luckily though, they decided there was enough room like between like him, the crew cheering, and him like smiling that they had room to like cut it. But yeah, it just sounds like this. It was a huge like weeks of practice, like all this stuff for this quick moment, which is a pretty cool moment. I'm pretty sure it's like one of like the stinger moments of like the trailer, I think, is her hitting that shot. So,
yeah.
But no.
I mean, it also like influences, I think, David in the Prometheus movies, because he's playing basketball and he does like a hook shot on a bicycle, you know, like basketball and like, you know, the alien. Maybe everyone who does alien movies are just basketball fiends too.
Maybe, I don't know. Oh, and I have to mention that Sigourney Weaver said that making that shot was one of the best moments of her life, only after her wedding and the birth of her daughter, which I think is
Oh, right, she does give birth to her daughter in this movie. It's that really like hybrid alien thing, right?
Oh man, you want to talk about this?
Yes, we got to get into this thing, the man child. Well, it's technically it's both genders, I believe, if I remember like the explanation of it, because I mean, okay, Matt, maybe you are smarter than me, but even now watching this movie like 4 times in my life, I'm still always somewhat confused on how the alien hybrid with Ripley works. It's kind of like one of those moments in the movie where Joss goes, I don't know, it makes sense, but does it make sense? Here you go. Because like in the beginning, she has the alien, they clone her and she still has the alien from Alien 3 and they extract it. They show that.
Right.
But they don't show like, so does that thing become like the queen alien, or like how does a queen alien show up in this movie?
Yeah, I had to read this because I was confused too. That the queen alien they have is from her. Okay. So you're right. So that is from her. And then because it's got human and xenomorph DNA, that's how you get that monster thing that immediately kills like the queen. It rips its jaw off, which is like an insane moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that thing is, and like I think people don't like that creature. I think I read, like, I can't remember, like they thought it was stupid or whatever. I think the thing is like really weird,
creepy.
Disturbing. Yeah, it's like it's creepy. It's like I don't like this at all. Like I think the xenomorphs are scary because they don't have eyes, but I'm like, wait, this thing has creepy human eyes. And I'm like, maybe this is scarier. I don't know. Like
the scariest thing is its pointed nose and human teeth. That's the thing that's scary to me.
Yeah. It's yeah. I've always found it like creepy and weird and like and it really like it like brutally murders me. It's the thing that crushes a guy's head. Yep. I think it bites on Brad Dourif's head or something.
Yeah, it bites in half.
Oh my god. It's like, yeah, that's when the violence like really goes through the roof, I feel like.
Yeah, because it's all in like this cocoon that's like oh, it's just like it looks different than most of the hives like you see in Aliens, you know. And I don't know. I'm still always confused on like how that thing came to existence. But I guess Brad Dourif is like in the movie he says like, you know, it doesn't lay eggs, but instead has a womb that will give birth to it. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. and like it's like this pregnant queen alien thing, and I'm like, oh, like this is like, as a kid watching, I'm like, this is weird. Like I don't know how like reproduction works, you know.
I haven't even taken sex ed yet. What's going on?
Right?
It's like, is this how it works? I like how Brad Dourif also was like completely cocooned, but he's still like talking through the whole thing, like through that whole like the things. He's like, it's beautiful, I think, or something like that, where he's just like super into it still. I'm like, it's like, you're in a bad spot right now, buddy. Yeah. I think I would just like shut up. And then there's a weird moment of like sexual kind of tension almost with like Sigourney Weaver and the queen, right? Not the hybrid monster,
Yeah.
where they're kind of like rubbing face.
Yeah.
Like, and I heard the studio really wanted to cut that because they thought it was too weird. And Sigourney Weaver was like, "You got to leave that in, or I won't do press for the movie." Apparently, she really stood by it. So, it's and like another scene, like maybe the most disturbing part of the whole movie for me. And I'm so shocked this is in like a major like blockbuster that was in theaters, and like I may have seen it when I can't remember if I saw it in theaters, but like the part where Ripley finds all her clones and
Oh my
finds that
gosh,
fucking
yeah.
one in the back that is like more like her than the other ones, but it's like not. It's oh my god, it's so disturbing how it's like it's not right. It's like different parts. And she's like, "Kill me," and then I think Winona Ryder hands
Her the flamethrower.
flamethrower, and I thought, well, that's kind of a messed up way to kill something, a flamethrower, because like wouldn't you just like shoot it? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
no, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, yeah,
thanks
let me
for
kill
picking the
you and
most
make me
painful way.
suffer.
Yeah, thanks for picking the most painful way to kill me. Nice.
God, that's a scene in the movie on rewatch again that I kind of forgot about, and it's it's in a weird place in the movie too. It's like at the halfway point. It's not even near the end, which I feel like near the end of this movie, it's just like a clusterfuck, like to the finish line of things going on. But yeah, it's like a subtle moment, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like the embryos and the genetics is just really weird. But also, like I said, this movie's really sci-fi and it's kind of cool in a way, but it's also very gross.
It's and that's one of the grossest part. That whole and they build that really well though, because it's like you see all this stuff. It's like they've been trying to clone her and it hasn't been working, and like all the failures, and then like the worst one is like you work your way to the back, and it's like, oh, what am I gonna find in this back room? And I think Sigourney Weaver actually sells that scene pretty well because like I think people will find it maybe funny because maybe they're uncomfortable or it's so over the top. I don't know what they think, but like I know it's been parodied by like South Park and stuff like that. But like Sigourney Weaver really sells it, like the pain of like I think she's horrified and she feels really bad for all these failed clones, and then she's like burning them all up, and she's like clearly really upset. So more props to Sigourney Weaver because she's the best. So she's really selling it.
As a kid, I always knew because like I watched like the DVD version. I think I also like when I'd watch the bonus features, you know, I always knew like in the interviews and stuff that she was like really passionate about this movie. And I think it's because it was the last in the franchise, at least for a long time. And she probably was like, this is a part of my life that I'll never forget. Might as well enjoy everything about it, you know?
Yeah. She brings it. I thought it was a funny story about how they got her back for this one, where she said they just drove. I mean, she said they were like, why'd you come back? You didn't want to do another one. She's like, they basically drove a dump truck full of money to my house, and I couldn't say no.
Her paycheck was like the whole budget of the first Alien movie. I'm not even kidding. I think that was insane. Like part of the fun facts.
Yeah, I think it was like $11 million, which is as much as the first one cost. It was like which is a lot. I mean, that's so I can't blame her. I mean, it's like, and she brings it. She's not like, I don't think she's like just phoning it in. Like clearly she did basketball practice for 3 weeks to make one shot. So like,
yeah, and it belongs in that category of like movies that are 2 hours but feel like a lot shorter than 2 hours.
Yeah, I was surprised when I looked at the Blu-ray and I thought it was like closer to an hour and a half, but I'm like, oh no, it is almost 2 hours. But I've seen a lot of times too, so it kind of flies by. But yeah, once you get past that first like 20-25 minutes, I feel like it just really, really rolls. Like I don't think it slows down at all, and they're throwing a lot of stuff at you too. So
yeah, like I said, this movie, it's a race to the finish line. And then you introduce characters like more than halfway through the movie, which is like almost unheard of a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, kind of strangely paced, but I like it. And I feel like I hate to knock on Alien 3 again, but it's like I feel like Alien 3 is like such a slog for me, and it's like this one is like once it gets going, it is like it's going for it. Like there's no slowing down, and it's just they may be throwing too much at you. I was thinking like the beginning kind of sets up a lot of stuff. There's lots going on, like the scientists working on the aliens, the mercenary crew, what the military is doing, Sigourney Weaver being a clone. It's like Jesus, like there's a lot going on, but I
feel like a lot of the video games kind of like ride off the coattails of Alien Resurrection. I feel like Aliens is like where everyone thinks like colonial Marines and stuff, which I get, but like I feel like a lot of the other games, like there was like a couple like Alien versus Predator, like, you know, bird's eye view kind of MMO RPG type games, kind of copy the whole scientist wanting to clone aliens and use them. I feel like they borrow a lot of that from Alien Resurrection, because Aliens, the best, like a lot of people think of like the Alien movies as like the military operations wanting to like kill these things. But in my eyes, and at least growing up with these movies and watching them constantly, I've always associated it with like the vain scientists, wanting to like harness like the species to make them their own, and it like their vanity gets the best of them with the aliens. Like they're always like they're like judge and jury, like they can't be contained. That they're always gonna. They're like, they're going to be the ones that are going to cause the most damage. You just kind of like Ripley says, like, you got to just kill them. You can't like control them.
Yeah. And it's weird. I feel like it's both. It's like scientists trying to play God, and then it's like military trying to weaponize the things, and both are bad ideas. And it's like, and it's funny because like, this one, I feel like this kind of sets up that whole idea. There's always like space pirates or space mercenaries, like crews, like, but then I think Aliens is like really, I feel like people really stole from that, especially like the Halo games, like the designs like look the same. I feel like Colonial Marines, like all the guys, like the normal space Marines, it's like that's straight from Aliens. But I think this one's like more sneaky. I feel like people kind of like take it for granted of like how it influenced stuff. But it's weird. I want to know, I'm curious like which one is more liked, like Alien 3 or this one, because I feel like it's weirdly split, and I feel like it's people like 3, they don't like Resurrection, or they like Resurrection but they don't like 3. You know what I mean? It's like they have one or the other.
I feel like it also is the same. Like, do you like Alien more? Or do you like Aliens more?
True.
And these are sequels to those.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny because like Alien and Alien 3 are much more similar, and Aliens and Resurrection are much more similar. So I feel like there's like a weird like overlap there. But
and now you have the Prometheus movies now too. Are you more Prometheus or are you Alien Covenant?
Yeah, I know it's more Alien Covenant because it kind of gave me more of what I wanted from an Alien movie. Like I gotta watch Prometheus again, because like I think I went into it thinking it was gonna be one thing and it wasn't what I wanted, so it like kind of disappointed me. But it's interesting.
Shorty, don't break my
heart. I know. Listen, I'll give it another chance. I own it on Blu-ray. I can watch it again. Like that's I'll give it another chance. I've actually thought of doing an episode on my show about Prometheus and Alien Covenant, because they're interesting movies. Like, but I do have kind of a problem with like, I feel like to me things are always scarier when you don't really explain them, and I kind of have a problem with like Ridley Scott going back and trying to like explain everything. Like, I'm like, we don't need everything spelled out for us.
You should rewatch it, because I feel like if you look at it as not as an alien movie, like from the same universe, but more like a sci-fi movie. I know that sounds weird and pretentious to say. It worked a lot more for me. I don't know why. I can't really explain it. I mean, I did those episodes with Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and upon rewatch, I love those movies now. And I think it's because I finally kind of, except for Covenant, obviously, but I finally kind of separated Prometheus as like, like the Ripley Alien movies to kind of like their own in a way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I mean, know that's what Ridley wanted.
That's true. I mean, whatever he wants to do is fine. It's Ridley Scott. He can do whatever. I'll watch him again. That's the reason I kind of want to do a whole episode on those, because like I don't know how I feel about those movies, but I think it'd be an interesting conversation no matter what I feel. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, it's a weird franchise. Like honestly, if you consider like Alien versus Predator part of the franchise, and Prometheus, Alien Covenant, plus the first 4. It's a really weird franchise. Like it's all over the place. It barely feels connected sometimes. It's very strange, but it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm like a fan of all of them, but like I find all of them interesting in their own way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's easily my favorite franchise in terms of movies. Like Alien's my favorite movie, but like I could watch any of these movies all the time, and it was one of the first franchises where I deep dove at an early age into like the lore and like just like the idea of what xenomorphs are, and then looking at H.R. Geiger's like artworks and stuff, and then I don't know, then it really got me to Ridley Scott movies, and watching Blade Runner and Gladiator and stuff like that was always just like a huge thing. And then of course I have to thank him for introducing me to like James Cameron's movies too, with Aliens. And eventually when I became a pretentious college kid, I started watching Fincher movies thanks to Alien 3. But Alien Resurrection always was like that one for me, where it was always like the fun one for me,
Yes.
Because like the first 2 are great movies. And I mean, Aliens is fun, because it's action packed, but I mean, it has a lot of heart to it. So I feel like, it could take a lot out of you at some point. But like Alien 3, it's not as, I like Alien 3, but it's not as rewatchable as Resurrection. So
I agree. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Anything else you want to talk about? Because I didn't have any more notes really. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm glad we're both fans of it. So
Yes, you're one of the few that I know that actually likes this movie, which I wouldn't know without doing this podcast that there are people like that. So thank you again, Matt, for having the same taste as me.
I'm happy that someone else also is a fan of this, because like for years, like I liked it, and like I said, I didn't know for a long time that like people like really don't like this movie, and I'm like, but it's fun. What's wrong with you guys? Like, not a lot of fans ever. I will defend Resurrection all day long. So, I did want to ask you. So, what's your favorite movie in the whole franchise?
Oh, it is 79's Alien.
Okay, okay.
That's my favorite. It's my favorite movie of all time too.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's great. I mean, that's totally understandable. And like, it's weird because when I was younger, I was like way more pro Aliens versus Alien, but over time, as I got older, I'm like, oh no, Alien is like a masterpiece. Like it's just so different. It's just so different than Alien. So I can like, to me, they're both 5-star movies, but they're just doing very different things with kind of the same idea.
Yeah, and you don't see that a lot of times with like movies of like a franchise magnitude like this, where it's like two different directors and styles of movies still kind of work to coexist as a franchise,
Yeah. Impressive. Yeah. So no, Alien is so good. It's fantastic. So, but did you hear on Twitter that horror can't be set in space?
Yeah, I heard about that. I stayed out of it because I know I'd get angry, and I'm already an angry person when it comes to difference of opinion. I'm just kidding. One
of the wildest things I've ever read on Twitter, and I've seen some wild stuff on Twitter. I was like, that was one of those days where I think I told Ken what was going on. I was like, this is why you shouldn't be on Twitter, man. This is like, I have to read stuff like that makes no sense.
I don't have time to pay attention to that stuff because I've been still trying to champion that Neil Blomkamp needs to make his Alien movie, which I think that would be such a great movie. But apparently there is a greenlit Alien movie in the works right now. I forget who's directing it, but it's not Neil Blomkamp, which is kind of disappointing.
Okay, I thought Ridley Scott was still doing more.
It might be Ridley Scott, or I thought he might have ended up taking a producer role, but he got to choose who directs it. Yeah. Who knows? I mean, the Alien franchise is always something that's dormant until, Ridley Scott either does it or the studio says whatever and goes off and does whatever.
I feel like it's one of those things where we'll get a lot more in the future. Like they'll just start pumping them out. Like you'll put the aliens in like in a city in present day, or they'll put them like way in the future on some other planet, or you can do anything like with that alien. It's kind of like a slasher in a way where you just drop the
Xenos.
The Xenos into like some situation and then like have
they're owned by Disney now. So, they'll probably go to Disney World and then the Avengers are going to come and then they're going to go in space and, be in the Star Wars universe. It's going to be great.
Well, they had, you might be too young for this too, but they had a ride. Oh, I can't even call it a ride. They had a thing at Disney in Tomorrowland called like Alien Encounter. Have you ever heard of this thing?
I've never even been to any of the Disney Worlds.
What? Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. That's man. So at Disney World, there was a ride, I think it was called Alien Encounter, and it was like you kind of get on it and like you just kind of sit in a seat, but you're like strapped into the seat, and there's like a big like test tube type thing in the middle of this room, and there's some scientist who's like, oh, we found this, we're gonna beam this alien in from another planet, check it out. And then like it's like the room goes dark and they're like, oh my God, something's gone wrong, red alert. And like this fucking terrifying alien that's like a mix between the Xenomorph and the aliens from Independence Day is suddenly in this like tube in the middle of the room. And then like they pretend the glass got broken and it's like pitch black and they're doing like blowing air on the back of your neck and they're like shaking the seat and they're like, the alien's loose in here, nobody move. And like my mom took me and my sister on this. We were like probably like 8 and 5 respectively, like, and like very young kids. And like, we were crying. We were like, no one knew it was that scary. And like, they got rid of it because it was way, way too intense. And now it's a ride with Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. There's like a more kid-friendly ride.
A more kid-friendly alien movie. Nice.
Exactly. Yeah. Go look up videos of that on YouTube. You cannot believe this ride was actually at Disney World because it's so intense for Disney. Like it was like very scary for little kids. I don't know what they were thinking.
I'll have to check it out. I need another stimmy so then I can go to the Disney World and land.
There you go. We all need to meet up there. All like the podcasting group needs to go to Disney together.
That would be so fun. It'd basically be all of you together and then me just annoying you with opinions. No. And I'd probably be wearing a Godzilla t-shirt with like Mickey Mouse ears. I'll be like that one tourist, And then I'll be going like, cheers. Jeez, you know, like just that thing that a bunch of kids are doing these days. I don't know. I feel like my parents are taking me then if we all go together.
Well, there you go.
And Daniel has me like a headlock telling me to behave, you know?
Yeah.
And then you and me just posing in front of like a xenomorph, you know? I don't know. I'm just creating this hypothetical trip right now.
Just spitball it. It's cool. But yeah, I don't know what else. The only thing I think of, I guess, could mention is like, I kind of love how they get rid of the alien at the end of the movie. You know, it's a little bit of a callback to the first one.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really graphic callback.
Jesus, yeah, it gets sucked to that very tiny hole, and it's like, I just love how it becomes like it's just its skull at the end, and then like that. It's kind of ridiculous, but I kind of love it because it's so over the top. It's a fun movie. Everyone should go back and rewatch it or watch it for the first time if you haven't seen it, I think.
Seriously, yeah, it has a lot of moments that's going to make your like jaw drop it a few times, and there's a lot of parts in the movie where I'm also kind of like chuckling, like, oh god. So yes, like Matt says, I definitely recommend this movie to everyone if you haven't seen it before. Technically, you should watch Alien 3 if you haven't before this, but at the same time, I feel like you don't have to because it brings you up to speed at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very set apart from the rest of the franchise, so you can watch it alone.
Yep. And you know, and like it ends in a way where, you know, you don't have to watch another movie if you didn't like it after. But Matt, thanks so much, man, for hopping back on to Inside the Sequel, dude. You know, you're always welcome on this podcast.
No, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be back, and I often think of more like underloved sequels that I really like to talk about on here.
Underloved, I love that. But Matt, before we close it out, where can people find your stuff at?
Well, they can find the Film Feast podcast anywhere you get podcasts. I'm pretty sure we're on all platforms at this point. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Film Feast Pod. You can follow me on Twitter at MattBled87. And you can follow me and the podcast on Instagram at Film Feast, which is all one word on there. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yes, and I encourage everyone. I feel like a lot of people have since that RoboCop episode, but still, if you haven't, check out Matt's stuff on Twitter. It's really great stuff. And the Film Feast podcast is really fun as well. And you can listen to some of my thoughts on like the King Kong vs. Godzilla episode that aired on there. And also check out Matt Bledsoe's Unscottable series that he's been doing. You might see some surprises there in the near future. So I'll co-sign that. And if you like this podcast, don't forget to follow us on our website at InsideTheSequel.com. Don't forget, we're also on Spotify. We're on iTunes. We're basically on all platforms as well. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Inside or Sequelpod. And then follow me at Hertastic_Chris. And yeah, remember, everyone that's listening, if you are not a fan of the Alien movies, do you really care about cinema? Anyway, let's see you next time.